tell you just briefly a little bit about Addiction Therapeutic Services. I do outreach for them. We are intensive outpatient drug and alcohol treatment. We take ages 18 on up. We also have gender-specific groups for some of the heavier issues, and we think that's really important, including, by the way, transgender groups. We do a wonderful family process group on Monday. It's at 5 o'clock on Monday. If any of you have any family referrals, please give me a call. I like to meet the family, meet them there, and introduce them around before they start group. We also have, every 5 or 6 weeks, a family outpatient program on a weekend. So know that.
I'm a certified life coach, and I'm one of Carol's 4 original men, or original boys, one of Carol's boys as we call them. I'll also be doing the presentation tonight, or today, on sexual abuse of boys and the effects it has and how we can heal from that.
He and his wife, and just had a great conversation with him during the a few minutes ago, and one of the things that I want to tell you, so he has a book coming out that is on Amazon, and it's on the front table there, and it's called Healing the Child Within. Man Within, I'm sorry about that. Healing the Man Within. And so he had a career in construction for 40 years, and he left that to pursue his passion in helping children and men heal from sexual abuse. So that's one of the things that really stands out in his story. He's a KDAC 1, he's a life coach, author. He's involved in the It Happens to Boys groups, which go on monthly. That's been happening for the past 8 years. And it's clear, just speaking to him, it's very clear that he is very in tune with his purpose and his passion, and I just love being around people like that. And I want to share a quote that I read in his book, and it's on the titles to one of the chapters, but the quote is, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood." So here's Randy.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Can they see that in the back?
Come.
Got on? This one wasn't on, so.
I'll use this.
Okay.
Can y'all see that all right? You got a copy of the PowerPoint in your package there too. So, hi everybody, how are you doing? Beautiful day in Palm Springs, isn't it?
Yes.
February and it's 80 degrees out. Only in Southern California is that going to happen, huh? Hey, first I want to start off, Danny mentioned the conference. Y'all should have got a flyer today on our conference, 8th annual It Happens to Boys Conference. It's going to be in Long Beach, California this year at the Long Beach Hilton. We got John Lee speaking. We have Reverend Leo Booth, Jerry Moe as usual, Cindy Carter, Carol Teitelbaum, Patrick Hagerson, myself, Danny, Scott, Robert. A lot of the same characters have been speaking for the last 8 years. What's not on here is the cost. The cost is $115 for the day. That also includes breakfast and lunch. Breakfast and lunch. So make sure, guys, you go on Creative Change conferences. You can register. Sorry, you can register on the website. Okay, you don't want to miss it. These conferences are phenomenal. There's also a lot of good education. I think this year we're focusing on moms, about John Lee and the mom thing. So it's going to be another really powerful, good conference. Okay. What I'm speaking about tonight is, or today is not a very popular subject, but it's what I love to do because nobody wants to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it for the rest of my life until the world hears we got a problem. I'm going to be an advocate for every man that I can and every boy that I can, God willing, okay? And it's the sexual abuse of men and boys. You know, there's some, I hear stuff all the time. I talk to men all the time, and I run across men that have been sexually abused, and they'll say, but Randy, I've dealt with it. And what they're telling me is they've talked about it maybe in a 4-step, or maybe they've talked about it in a trauma group. And I can tell you that I can count 4 or 5 men right now off the top of my head. Kerry, 39-year-old male. You heard me speak at Betty Ford. He got out. 3 months later, he called me. He says, Randy, you remember me? I go, yeah, I do. I heard you talk. I need to talk to you bad. I says, okay, we'll meet Friday. 3 months he'd been sober. Between Tuesday and Friday, he drank. I knew why he drank, but I wanted him to tell me. He got triggered when he got out. And he didn't know what to do because he talked about it when he was in treatment, but he was given no tools to deal with it when he got in the real world. Okay? And so I worked with Kerry for about 4 or 5 months, and he disappeared. Okay? We were doing some really nice work, and I want to put this, I'm going to disclaimer, I take people to a certain level, and I know when to refer them out to psychologists or to centers. I don't do any more than I can do, because I do not want to cause more harm than good. My job is to help people, not to hurt them. So Kerry just kind of ran about, and every month he was getting thrown in jail or some kind of institutions. He'd call me up a couple times. He was drunk, he wanted help. I said, well, when you get sober, I'll help you. So, you know, when you're ready. I walk in the meeting one morning, they go, Randy, you hear what happened to Kerry? I go, no. 39 years old, a beautiful, gorgeous wife, 3 beautiful children. He hung himself. Okay? This isn't something that we mess around with. And in facilities, we're making great strides and making progress to help these men, but we can't just let them talk about them. Somehow we have to give them tools so that when they get out, they have somewhere to go, something to do, some other resource. And that's what it happens. The Boys is about, that's why we have our meetings, and that's why we're out spreading the word all the time. And all the other ones have either relapsed, or there's a big cause of relapse because they hold on to the shame in them, and then they get triggered, and they don't know what to do with it, so they go to their default button. Okay, so we've got to quit sweeping it underneath the carpet. It's a bad, bad problem. Many people, they don't even know sexual abuse exists. I've talked to people who go, you got to be crazy. But no, it happens all the time to boys. And then other times, matter of fact, a lot of therapists don't even know that sexual abuse is happening. They kind of naive to it, which is okay. And then they don't know what the effects are or how to deal with it. And those are the problems that we're dealing with. And so we all need to become more educated on how to deal with it. And that's why we talk and do what we do. And so some of this stuff you guys might know, some of you might not. And if you do, please, I'm not insulting your intelligence. I'm just trying to put as much information out there as I can. And so, what is sexual abuse? Forget I got a PowerPoint. I don't know if you all see that or not, but what is sexual abuse? According to the National Center on Child Abuse and Neglect, it defines sexual abuse as contacts or interactions between a child and an adult when the child is being used for sexual stimulation, the perpetrator or another person. When the perpetrator or another person is in a position of power or control over the victim. Sexual abuse is never about sex. It's about power. Hurt people, hurt people. And that's pretty obvious definition. But Judith Lewis Herman, I love her definition. Any touch or other behavior between the child and the adult that must be kept a secret will be considered abuse. See, for me it was, don't tell anybody, Randy, it's our little secret. Well, if it's okay what you're doing to me, why do I got to keep it a secret? If it's okay that I'm getting beat to death, why do I got to keep it a secret? You know, we'll take away from sexual abuse from them. Why do we got to keep it a secret? There is no such thing as a secret when it comes to abuse. In my book, page 164, a quote from the Kids Safe Foundation. According to the Kids Safe Foundation, a good secret is something that feels good to know and has a time limit. At some point, a good secret won't be secret anymore. Common examples of good secrets are surprise gifts or parties. Bad secrets make you feel anxious, scared, confused, or ashamed. Without question, all secrets involving abuse are bad. See, we keep those secrets because of shame, and as we grow older as men, first are little tiny secrets, nothing big, and then they grow into a little bit bigger secrets at school. I'm cheating on my homework, or, I'm lying to mom about where I'm at, but we'll just keep it a secret. Then as we get married, we got the secrets of maybe talking to other women on the phone or on an email, or maybe I'm having an affair, but I don't want to tell them. That's a secret. I got to keep it secret. So I learned early on in my life, through various modalities, that it was okay to keep secrets and okay to lie. And they just kind of grew on me, and I thought I was a good guy, but it was just part of growing up. It's kind of what I did. It's what I learned how to do. And I thought it was normal. Examples of sexual abuse. I don't know if I'm in the way or not. Some of these are, again, obvious, some of them are, but following. And by the way, I'm going to go to this list. And remember, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. So every one of these things I'm going to talk about right now happened to me. Following a child's genitals, having intercourse with a child, having oral sex with a child, having sex in front of a child. Well, how can that hurt a child? When you're laying in bed next to where it's happening, and mom's screaming, and there's all sorts of noise going on, and you're a child, and you're scared to death, you don't want to move, you don't want to breathe, what's going on? There's a lot of confusion. That's how it hurts you. Confusion and fear. A lot of fear and confusion. Incest, masturbation, showing X-rated books or movies to a child. On that one right there, 4-year-old girl was being exposed 24 hours a day to pornography in her home. That's all the parents watched, 24 hours a day. So when dad started sexually abusing her, she thought it was just normal. Nothing was wrong with it. So we expose our children to this stuff, and then we wonder what's wrong with them when they get out in the world. I just say it. What's wrong with the children of the world today? What's wrong with the parents? I'm sorry. It's just, no, I'm not sorry. It's just the way it is. What's wrong with the parents? That's where it starts. There's a lot of confusion. How it feels good, but yet so wrong. See, God made our body, on page 64 of my book, God created our bodies to be aroused when we are touched in certain areas. Our bodies don't know that we were being abused. They just don't know the simulation feels good. That is very confusing to us and carries more shame than any other secret we carry. Man in our group one night, really nice, on our men's group. Towards the end, he says, "Okay, that's it. I'm just going to say it." "Yeah, what's that?" He goes, "Well, it felt good." Wow. Yeah, it's going to feel good because the physiology that God made us, we can't stop that part of it. But what did it do to this guy? That night he went home and wrote a suicide letter and checked himself into Oasis. He was a sponsor of mine, and thank God he's okay today. He's great. He's living a great life because he got help right away. So all this stuff that we don't think affects men, it affects men in a big way. Okay? Okay, statistics. One in 4 boys before the age of 18 will be sexually abused. Now we use that statistics all the time when we quote that. The reality is, I can't find where that came from. It was posted on the Lisa's Project website at one point, probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I can't find it anymore. I want to find it, okay? Now 1in6.org, big organization, national organization, they use the number 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18. The sad part about that is that comes from a study done by Jim Hopper in 1996. in my research class, method class I had, I was doing some research, and there's hardly any updated research on sexual abuse of boys. It pretty much non-existent. The one exception that I found was a study done in 2005 by Johnson, ETL. I found that 59, well, I'll explain the test. The study was actually to find out the correlation between drug and alcohol use and dependency and sexual abuse in men. They wanted to see what the correlation was. Okay, so they went through the selection process. They selected 100 prison inmates out of Houston, at a county jail in Houston, Texas. So 100 inmates, 100 males. All of them had substance abuse. 59% have been sexually abused as boys. So what are the statistics that we're going to use for men? 1 in 2, 1 in 6, 1 in 10, 1 in 5. Nobody wants to talk about it. And the reality is that a lot of our men in addiction treatment centers have been sexually abused. And nobody knows how to address it. And that's no fault of anybody. And the sad part about all this is that less than 10% of the child abuse is even reported. So we got a reporting issue on top of it. As far as perpetrators, 93% know their victims. 34.2% of the perpetrators are family members. 58.7% are acquaintances, and only 7% are strangers. And we have one man in our group, Danny. He's the only one that was molested by a stranger. So we got kids at home, we're worrying about stranger danger. We need to worry about what's going on at home behind the closed doors. Okay? Children are most vulnerable between the ages of 8 and 12. We have heard stories. We had one man in our group when he was 2 years old was molested. And believe it or not, when I talk to men in treatment facilities, I'll ask them the age, and they all, 90% of them will tell me between 8 and 12 years old. I'm just kind of wondering what happened to them between the ages of 8 and 12. And 80% of those men that have been abused have substance abuse histories. And I think the statistics is telling us right around 65% of men in addiction facilities have been sexually abused. I've had one therapist from a local treatment facility here tell me that she believes 95% of her male patients have been sexually abused. And I know what Danny and I see when we talk up the facilities, it's up there between 80 and 90%. And you take the sexual abuse, remember I'm talking about one component, but there's physical, emotional, and spiritual abuse that happens right along with it. Most men, 100% of the men, actually have experienced some kind of trauma in their life that's in a treatment facility. Dan Griffin, I love him, he's a sociologist, and I just like what he's doing, I love what he's doing. He's actually got a group called Matrix, MATRIX.com. He has got a group of men that are going around trying to get men-focused trauma treatment in facilities across the state. And that's what we need. Because we'll focus on the women, and we'll focus on a lot of different traumas. But how much are we really focusing? I mean, I admire you have gender-specific groups at ATS. That's what we need, gender-specific groups where men can go in there and say, you know, I was sexually abused. And have a therapist or somebody that can sit in there and say, hey, I want to hear what's going on. Validate their feelings. Because we, as therapists and clinicians, and my job and Danny's job as survivors, we're the ones that are going to be responsible for helping these men get help. The effects: silence, silence is the most obvious. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, again, almost every one of these I suffered. Major depression, anxiety disorder, anger. How many in here believe it's okay to be angry? Interesting. Anger is a very healing emotion when it's used properly. It's right. The problem with men in anger, like me and like Danny, I can speak for Danny, I know Danny really well, is that we're told we can't be angry, and we repress our anger for years and years and years and years. And then we have a couple cocktails or whatever we're going to do, and somebody says something that triggers us that we're unaware of, and we blow up. Now, that kind of anger is okay in the world's eyes, because we're men and we're supposed to be tough and aggressive. When in fact, anger is a very healing emotion, and John Lee talks about this a lot. Sharon, you knew I was coming today, and you double booked me.
I did it on purpose.
Now I'm going to walk out of here. Here's how I deal with my anger. I can walk out of here and say, I can't believe what Sharon did to me. I'm not going to say a word to her, but I'm going to be pissed off, and I'm going to say bad stuff about ATS and about Sharon. And I got this resentment going in me, all right? I'm just going to be all this anger, and Sharon is going to see me one day, and I won't talk to her. She goes, what's wrong with Randy? How come he's not talking? Or the proper way, Sharon, I can't believe it. We've had this plan for a month. I drove all the way here from Arizona, my gas money and everything else, and you didn't have the decency to tell me I was double booked and you're going to have to rebook you? Wow, Randy, you're right. I made a mistake. We should have called you. I'm sorry, we got busy. We'll compensate you for your gas. We want you to come back next month, please. All right, Sharon. That's all I can ask. That's the proper way to handle anger. Tell her I was angry, and then talk about it with her. Aggressive behavior, because anger will lead to aggressive behavior. The poor self-image and low self-esteem, very successful in life, very successful. A beautiful wife, beautiful home, my kids, and you would come up and compliment me, I would say, well, if you knew what was behind this facade. As a matter of fact, in 2004, based on the bottom one here is going to be trust issues. So I'm going to try tie this in with trust issues. 2004, as successful as I was, Kathy was in the real estate business, and she was dealing with a lot of realtors, and I'm a contractor, and I'm no, and I thought they were better than me, and Kathy knew I was sexually abused, and I'm dirty, and I'm tainted, and I'm no good, and Kathy's going to leave me. I know she is. I don't deserve to be loved the way Kathy loved me. There's no way. Nobody can love me the way Kathy loved me. I don't deserve it. I know she's going to leave me. I trust issues too. I just know it. Contrary to all the evidence, I left her. Because I was insecure. My self-confidence and my self-worth was gone. Even though I was successful. Even though all the evidence showed me how much Kathy loved me. I left her. Thank God, by the grace of God, she took me back. And we're going to celebrate 33 years this summer. But then guilt and shame, sexual-related issues. You know, when it comes to the trust, on page 193 of my book, after all, we trusted our abuser and learned later that he wasn't trustworthy. Abused children grow up with this double-edged sword. We are often desperate to be loved, but too terrified to trust the people who try to love us. You know, Danny and I, we see it all the time. These people, they come to us, but they got this outstretched arm like this. And as we get closer and closer to them, they push harder and they push harder and they push harder. Carrie pushed harder. Come here, I need your help, Randy. But no, I can't. Trust. How can you trust anybody when you trust? I was 12 years old. My father just died. I trusted this man was after my best interest as a father figure, and instead he was after his own interest and sexually abused me. The trust is a bad deal for us. Okay, why we don't tell. This is where Dan Griffin and Brene Brown both come into play. Dan Griffin, in his book called Man's Way Through the Relationships, talks about the man rules, societal rules for men. Men, don't cry. Can't cry, you're a man. Suck it up. Don't ask for help, figure it out yourself. I remember sitting on a job site in Dana Point one time on a hill trying to figure out how to bend rebar down the hillside for 4 hours. One step I couldn't figure it out. And when I told my boss, he says, figure it out. I ain't helping you. And don't show your emotions. Please don't show your emotions, especially if you're a guy. I used to tell people I'm a contractor, I got no emotions. That's literally what I live. I got no emotions, I'm a contractor. And the granddaddy of all is shame. Now, when you look at Brene Brown, when she talks about women, I want you to really think about this because it's no different than what men think. Danny will attest to this as well. For women, we're too young to put what happened to us into words. Lies the men also. We're threatened or bribed by the abuser to keep the abuse secret. I was bribed all the time. I was always bought stuff. Keep it, it's our little secret. You know, Christmases were more gifts than a child deserved for a 10-year period I get in 1 year. Feel confused by the attention and feelings accompanying the abuse. Very confusing. I needed a father figure. I didn't want to blow this father figure I had in my life right now. As bad as it was all I had. Are afraid no one will believe them? Yeah. Orange County Sheriff sitting in my bedroom. You don't understand what it's like living in this house, Randy. I don't care what it's like living in your house, Randy. You're 17. Until you're 18, you stay in your room. That's what they tell you to do. They blame themselves or believe the abuse is punishment for being bad. Feel too ashamed or embarrassed to tell. Pastor of our church was told by Jack in front of me, don't worry about it, Randy. It's part of growing up. You won't be gay. And the abuse, I'll tell you, got worse after that. And worry about getting into trouble or getting a loved one into trouble. So you kind of see the rundown of how it affects us. This is real short on that part. I mean, not real short. You know, and we don't know a victim yet that as they got honest, has not had all these things happen to them. In some way, shape, or form, all these effects have happened to these men. And so many men think, well, it's just part of growing up. It's who I am. No, it's not. If you've been abused, that's not who you are. Because the minute that you're abused, just like an alcoholic, the minute an alcoholic, or you start drinking, they say you stop growing. Same thing when you're abused. You quit growing. Spiritually, we were molested, raped. Physically, our childhood was torn from us. We were never allowed to have a full childhood. You know? Look, we can't take back the past, and we can't take back what happened to us, and that's not what we're here for. But what we can do is educate. And what we can do is work with the men that have been abused. And we can change the future. Say, look, if that's what happened to you, we understand that. But it doesn't have to be that way no more. So let's make your child's life, let's make your life a little better. And this is how we're going to do this. Okay? This is how we're going to do this. Okay, on to the book. Before I go on to the book, all this, my abuse defined me for 38 plus years of my life. I was a victim, and I lived as a victim. And when I walked into Betty Ford, I might be double dipping here, but when I walked into Betty Ford in 2006, they validated everything about me. My feelings, my anger. They allowed me to talk without judgment. They allowed all that. And because of that fact alone, I was able to start my healing process. And when we work when Danny and I have talked to men, and when I talk to men, what they want to hear, what they want is they want to be validated. They don't want to be told what they have to do. They know they need help. But they want to be validated. They want to be given life. They want to be given an opportunity to live. What do I have to do? Yeah, I know I'm a victim. How do I get out of that? How do I forgive? How do I ever trust again? They're in a dark world. They can't see that. And my book talks about a lot of that. My book isn't just about my autobiography. My book talks about the healing process that we can take. Just what I did. It's not an end-all, fix-all. And I don't have all the answers for everybody. Cognitive behavior, EMDR, all that works. But I think the biggest thing that's going to work, and the number one thing that works the best, is compassion for these men. So what that they're men? They're a human being. They've been badly beat up as children. They've been badly abused and used. And we can't deny that. We just can't. Okay. So why did I write my book? Because my therapist told me to. I mean, flat out, you need to write a book? Okay. And I will tell you, it was a labor of love that I started it probably 6 years ago just by doing some research on the family and stuff. And what I found when I wrote my book is there was a very definitive line in the sand between my mother's side of the family and my father's side of this family. Dark on my mom's and light on my father. Very definitive line. So that helped me a lot in my healing process. Because a lot of times, you know, people just pass on learned behavior. Hurt people, hurt people. My mom was abused, my stepfather was abused. Okay, my book is not about blaming. Blame doesn't do no healing. Okay? So I wrote the book. How many hundreds of thousands of men are out there silenced right now? Sitting in fear in their house, shaking in anxiety because they don't have no voice. They don't know who they can talk to. So my book is a way they can pick it up and they can read my book and say, man, I'm not alone. There is other people out there that have gone what I've gone through. I can reach out for help. You know, I give them that hope. My book is about hope and healing. Hope and healing. I want to give survivors, their families, and my therapist, Deborah Mites, this will be the only book she'll let any of her men clients read. Period. And I think her and Kelly Llewellyn's another, there's several Carols in the book, they all endorsed it. Most of their comments are, and Dr. Alan Berger, John Lee, they all say that all therapists need to read the book. Okay, so yeah, it's my book and I want to tell you to read it. This is coming from professionals. Okay? You know, and the family members. You know, I wrote it originally for men, but here's what's happening is women are buying this book, and I'm getting texts going, Randy, I'm all over page 88. Oh, Randy, I can relate to this, or this book is for the entire family, Randy, which is which is good to hear. So this book is for everybody. It's not just for men. But matter of fact, more women are buying it than men. I wonder why. It's not an autobiography or a clinical book. It's not either one of them. Autobiographies that I read, most of them, and that a lot of people read, are just dark. They're just about the abuse. That's all they talk about is the abuse, what happened to them. And so I take the abuse, how it affected me, not only as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult male, as a husband, as a father, how it affected me across the board, and how I learned how to deal with it, how I learned how to heal from it. With some tools in there, like I say, it's not an end-all, fix-all, and it might not be for everybody. That's okay. But I know it's worked for me. And so, and it's not the clinic. It's got a lot of clinical stuff in there. Not a lot. It's got quite a bit of clinical stuff in there. So I've taken the best of both worlds and put it together. And hopefully, it'll help a lot of people. I believe it's going to help a lot of people. And it's definitely not about casting blame. We don't want to blame people. I'm not blaming everybody for what happened. It happened. It's done and over with. You know, I believe in God. I also believe that God has a great plan for me. And I believe Genesis 50:20. What God meant for man for harm, God meant for good. He brought me to this position for the many lives I'll save. Okay, God had a plan for my life, and if that abuse was part of it, that's what it is. And I believe thoroughly that's what it was. Because if it wasn't for all I went through in my life, I would not be able to help the men I'm helping today. Okay? So I'm not blaming nobody. I used to blame God. I used to tear him apart. I was bad. Just ask my wife, she'll tell you. It's about finding hope, healing, and purpose for your life. Yeah, there's, like I said, Dan Griffin, Dr. Alan Berger, John Lee, Mick Hunter, Jerry Moll. They're all either excerpts or endorsements of the book. Let's go a little quickly. Anybody got any questions? I like to interact, so I mean, don't be afraid to speak up and ask me a question. I mean, that's how I learn too.
You should have stayed at the school yesterday. You would have got questions.
Yeah, I got a couple before I left. So, but yeah, don't be afraid as I'm going to interrupt me and ask questions. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I actually like it. It makes me feel like you're paying attention, or you're learning something, or you want to learn more, or you know. I get a complex. No, I don't. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. Hey, grab my book out of there. My book. It's all marked up in there. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are people going into any of the schools to deal with the children when they're younger, delivering?
Yeah, we're going into the schools and talking right now. We were doing Palm Desert both semesters for what, 4 years?
Twice, yeah, 2 semesters.
Yeah, 2 semesters, like for 4 years. We were talking to the freshman health science class, and it was devastating. I will tell you that it was devastating, the amount of abuse that's happening there. Because we passed around a 3x5 card, anonymous, and 40 kids in that first class, and there was like 16 that were abused.
Yeah, 16 abused.
Yeah, it's
16
devastating.
right now.
And I'll tell you what's more devastating, if there's any parents in here, I know you're all therapists and clinicians and you want to do this. When you hear somebody write on their card, when I was 8 years old, my grandfather and my brother were sexually abusing me. I told my mother, and she made me the bad person, made me the black sheep of the family. That was when she was 8, now she's 14, and they're still doing it to me today. That's what's devastating. The kids are being thrown under the carpet.
We just
For
did
what?
middle school yesterday.
Are there other translations in your book available?
No, I'm hoping to get it in Spanish. Okay, I had a guy who was going to translate it. He translated the rough draft, so I got to see if he'll do the final draft. Okay, yeah. Sooner than later, I hope. Matter of fact, you got me going. I'll make a call this weekend. Yeah. Richie.
You know, it wasn't until we met about 4 or 5 years ago, and I mean, this wasn't even an issue that ever even crossed my mind, you know. And being in recovery, I mean, I just can't admit. And we saw the movie Spotlight, I mean, which is out right now, and I mean, that thing just absolutely, you know. I mean, thank God that it's out. And absolutely blown away by what happened at the end of the movie with all the countries and and everything that's going on. And that's probably just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
You know, which is amazing. Being in recovery, you know, we're both in recovery. Has being in recovery, the healing start in your case, or I'm sorry,
Daniel.
In your case, after you came into recovery, or was there a process that was leading up to it prior to that?
For me, there was a little bit of a process because I had that affair, and when I moved back in with Kathy, we started getting counseling. And during that first year before I sobered up, Deborah had started touching on the sexual abuse, just a little bit at a time. But the thing about that is that we want men ASAP to start talking about their abuse and working on it. But until the alcohol and drugs are out of our system, doesn't mean we have to have a year sobriety. We don't have to have that. A month or two in. Once the drugs are enough out of your system, then that's when I could start healing, because I would still go out of Deborah's office and drink and use cocaine and do whatever I was going to do. I'd fall right back in my victim mode. So it was a process leading up to it. And then once I dove into recovery, got into Betty Ford, it was all out. All in. Whatever I was going to do, I was done living the way I was living. So it's that's a good, and it is a process. It doesn't happen. Danny 16 years and me 10. We're still working on it. We treat it like we do our addictions.
Yeah, you know, there's an old expression, you can't unring the bell.
Right.
No, but at a given point, where my thinking is that, I mean, we're blessed to have the program, the 12 steps, you know. But I'm thinking of the tens of thousands that are out there that do not have the 12. I mean, they're not involved in the 12 steps. And where I'm thinking is that where your experiences are going to transcend into that area,
Right.
where the healing is going to start that domino effect is going to, which is I just applaud you guys for for what you're doing.
Yeah, it's going to take that, because a lot of guys aren't in recovery. So it's just having them come and having guys like Danny and I to talk to and say, yeah, you know what, you're okay. We'll help you through this.
But we do have a few men who aren't in recovery
Right.
in our group, and we address that. So we don't. It's not just recovery based is what
Right.
Randy and we do. It's
that's
basically
what I
the
mean.
human need to heal.
I'm wondering, these middle school kids or even younger that are abused, and then they come forward and admit it, and then, you know, the secrecy surrounding abuse is so intense, so palpable, that they can't tell because their lives are threatened, their family standing is threatened, whatever. So what do you do after they admit it? Maybe that's something you
Well, in the case of the school, when they did that, because Carol's a licensed therapist and I'm KDAG, we have to tell them, we don't know who these kids are that are saying it. Okay, they're just openly saying it. We don't have their name, or we would have to report it and then go on from there.
The index cards,
The index cards, yeah, with these index cards is what we do. Okay.
anonymously index
Yeah.
cards.
So we don't know
bring
who
them
they
back,
are.
and then we address the cards.
So the sad part is this: is you said something that's very important.
Yeah.
The family's name, the secrecy. You got to throw that right out the window, because if you're all you worried about is that family name, you need to take care of that child. You shouldn't be a parent. I'm just going to flat say, you need to worry about your child. That child is your #1 responsibility, and that child is our future. That child's our future. Remember the kids shooting up schools? Take the guns away? No, take the parents away. You know what's going on? What's going on in their homes? We can't fix everybody. We can't help everybody, and we know that. But we can educate, and parents just got to start waking up and saying, you know what, you're my child. My mom put me, the worst beating I ever got, my mom instigated. My mom instigated. That's not what a mother does. She knew the abuse was happening. She participated in the physical and emotional. A mother doesn't do that. Somebody hiding the abuse in the family is just as guilty as abuse as a perpetrator. I know I'm talking real hard and cold facts, but that's just the way it's got to be. Until people start waking up and want to step out and take a risk to heal their child, which eventually, if America wakes up, then we can heal the entire family system. The family's already broken. It's done with. Why are we worried about a family that's broken? We got a child we got to save. Are we just going to throw these kids out on the street all the time? It's hard. It's really heartbreaking. Yeah.
Is there a difference with a male if he was molested by a female or a male?
Good question. And by the way, that does happen a lot. At the facilities, guys go, there ain't no way that's happening. And a lot of times it's worse for the male. Believe it or not, we had one story of a guy that 2 twin sisters got a hold of him and tied him down in the garage and did them both. Very confusing. They're not ready for it. There's a lot of confusion that goes on. Yeah, so it makes it, as they get older with women or They want to stand off from women. This guy was a mess. Remember that guy? He was a mess, man. He really was. So yeah, it affects similarly are all there. The degree, I think, depends on the individual.
When you go into the schools and you're able to get those anonymous cards from kids, I assume you give them resources in the area where they can go to.
Yeah, yeah.
How many school events have you been to get that kind of response from kids?
Okay, the high school we went to, 4 or 5 years, Danny?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, we went twice a semester. I mean, once a semester, so twice a year.
Okay.
And we spoke all day long to every class, so there was 5 classes a day we talked to. And they all got, I'm out on the cards, it happens a boys card, which has resources on the back of it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, Danny's got a couple of them, those cards right there. So we make sure they have that resource available, okay? They'll generally, someone will come up and talk to us. They won't tell us, but you can see what's going on in their little eyes, and they'll talk to us. So we're very compassionate towards them, and we're real safe. We talk at their level, and we make sure they're safe. It's really important. But yeah, they do have a resource when they walk out of there.
Basically, we validate, first we validate them, and we give them resources for them to learn how to have their own feelings and to honor their own, how to verbalize that. That's kind of what it was yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of that was encouraging them to learn how to verbalize what they're feeling, and so that they can learn how to translate that to their parents.
Richie was on the spotlight too. Have you all heard about Sergeant Martland, the Green Beret that beat up that Saudi Arabia police officer for molesting that boy over in Saudi Arabia? Have anybody been paying attention to that?
Yeah.
I was listening to it on the radio yesterday. And he doesn't deserve to be kicked out of the Army. Absolutely does not deserve to be kicked out of the Army. He needs to be decorated, as a matter of fact. But as I'm listening to this, it was all about Sergeant Martland. Nothing was said about the kid. Okay? So that's the sad part about it. And believe me, I'm on Sergeant Martland's side. He's a hero in my eyes. Sergeant Martland was kicked out of the Army. What kind of message is that going to send to America? Here, a decorated soldier in our military stopped the kid from being sexually abused, and they kick him out of the Army. So why would any civilians in America want to, what's going to happen to them? My mind goes crazy when I hear this stuff. What kind of message is being sent? Right. I don't think he's going to get kicked out. It doesn't sound like he's going to, but, it just depends. Okay, in chapter 1 of my book, I talk about a couple things of what sex is, or what sexual abuse is and what's not. The way the book's written, you don't have to read it chapter to chapter. I don't advertise it that way because I want people to read the entire book from cover to cover. But there's chapters in here on getting started, reparenting. Rich, you like that, the inner child work. You're still here? There you are. Spiritual abuse, the G word, the G-D word, God. Hitting bottom, getting clean, secrets and silence, confronting the perpetrator. I get that all the time. Randy, I want to talk to my perpetrator. I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. We need to talk a little more. Why wouldn't they want to? Why would you want to talk to a perpetrator? Well, because he owes it to me. No, he doesn't owe you nothing. First of all, if you really feel you got to do that, I'm hoping you're talking with a therapist, and you guys come up with a plan in order to do that. But here's the reality of it. If you go talk to your therapist, be prepared to be rejected. Be prepared to have, did I say therapist or perpetrator?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I catch myself. You gotta, not your therapist. If you're gonna go talk to your perpetrator, be prepared to be rejected. Be prepared to be lied to. Be prepared to, what are you talking about? Don't be prepared. Don't go there expecting an apology. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, because you're probably not going to get it. And that's going to create a whole lot more shame in you than it would if you just left it alone. I hear you. I understand what you want to do, but you don't really want to do that. At least not at this point in time.
Do it with your therapist.
Yeah, and actually, exactly, and that's what I tell her. In fact, if you're going to do that, like I did with my mother, not with my perpetrator, because but you sit down with your therapist, arrange it with your therapist so you have a third party in there that's safe, that can control the whole situation. That is critical. Critical.
Take somebody with you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would never go confront him one-on-one, okay? If you're full of anger, hate, and rage like I was, I plotted my stepfather's assassination for 38 years. God did for me what I couldn't do. He kept me away from him. And when I got to the point of forgiveness, that thought went completely away. But if you got hate, rage, and anger towards your perpetrator, don't go see him. It can turn out really bad. Okay? Because if you're like Danny and I, and you go off, there ain't no stopping us.
Trouble.
Yeah, it's trouble. But I talk about, you know, what sexual abuse is and what it isn't, because there is a couple fine lines. Let's see. For instance, you're probably living the experience out of you're probably living out the experience of sexual abuse child if you feel afraid of an adult or older child touching you, talking to you, or exposing himself or yourself to you, or herself to you. You feel coerced into staying silent about sexual contact of any kind. Remember, silence secrets is not good. You feel dirty or ashamed of what other people did to you as a child. And these are just a few things. I say, what it is and what it's not. You know, telling dirty jokes at the dirty table around, you know, with your kids there. That's not sexual abuse. You know, some people get a little carried away. So we just got to be really careful with the way we define it. Like, talk about trauma triggers. And these are really critical because that's what killed Kerry. Kerry went out, he got triggered. Nobody had worked with him on triggers. Nobody given any kind of tools to work with the trauma triggers. So myself, I've been doing this on the journey for 11 years, 10 years of sobriety. And I thought I knew all my trauma triggers. So I'm paying bills one afternoon in our office. And I called Kathy in to look at them, go over them with her. I didn't like something I was seeing. And she goes, we're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. That's her default. And she's right. We're always fine. And she walked back out and she's reading her book in the living room. So I sat in there and I was steaming. I didn't like what she told me. You know, she didn't give me the answer I wanted to hear. So when I got done paying the bills, I walked out and Kathy's in her chair and I go, hey, babe, I didn't like the way the conversation ended in there. Can we talk about it a little more? Now, she's codependent. She's very healthy codependent. She's been working on her issues for a long time. She knows how to set boundaries really, really well. Too well. Darn it. And she says, not now, Randy. We'll talk later. I went off. I lost it. Lost control. Went into a little rage, like verbal rage. I was pissed. Went let her out of the house. And this was just a year ago. When I calmed down, like, what in the world just happened? She just told me not now. Didn't mean that. When she said not now, I didn't hear Kathy. Who do you think I might have heard?
Your mom.
Exactly, I heard my mother. Because my mother said not now was never. See, these just keep coming up, and the more I'm in recovery, the more I realize I got a few more triggers I got to work on. The beauty of it is because of all the tools I've learned. Yeah, I might have made a mistake, but I went back and I could apologize to Kathy, and I go, okay, I got to be careful of my triggers. I'm aware of the triggers that come up. Okay, there's times like doing what I'm doing now, I'm no good. Nobody's going to listen to me. I'll get triggered really bad, and that's again a voice of my mother's. Who do you think you are? Nobody's going to listen to you. And so I've learned how to tune that voice out because I got God that says I hear everything. Okay, so we got to be real careful of the triggers, and you know, retreatment, try to get them to really identify the, you know, just not the surface triggers too. And I realize that in treatment we got 30, 60, 90 days. We don't have a lot of time to work with these people, and I understand that. But as much as we can identify their trauma triggers, not the surface stuff. Have them dig deep. You know, just one deep thing. It'll help them when they get out. It might just save somebody's life. Can't do it alone. I talk about getting clean. You know, what it was like for me getting clean. That's in chapter 8. That's the 12-step program. You know, the 12-step program saved my life, you know. They absolutely saved my life. I had really good sponsors. I had a good AA sponsor and I had a good CODA sponsor. that Roy, my co-sponsor, he would see me before he was my sponsor. He'd put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, Randy, you're enough and I love you. What are you talking about, man? I didn't know the man. He's telling me this. So when he became my co-sponsor, I said, Roy, what did you mean? He goes, Randy, you're enough. You're not more than. You're not less than. You're just enough. And you're lovable. Wow. Yeah, I'm a man, and I need to hear that. Okay? I still need to hear it today.
You're enough, Randy.
Thank you, Danny. I talk about retaking control of your life, you know, not letting the abuse control you anymore. My abuse controlled me for 30 plus years. Everything about me. It controlled my life. It controlled how I acted, what I did, the money I spent. I will tell you one thing. Abuse drove me to success. Absolutely drove me to success. Because I was going to prove that I was not a failure, that I wasn't an idiot, and that I was good. And I remember in 2011 when the economy crashed and we decided that we're going to be done with the business. We were okay financially, but we're just done with it. Somebody asked me, Randy, you think it was a screw you to your mom and Jack that you built that business that big? He says, yeah, you know what, I think it was. I wanted to prove to the world that, hey, look at me now, look how important I am. But the bad part about that, and I talk about the authentic self in chapter 13, and Alan Berger's got a great piece in there for me on that, is that when I walked away from that business, now who was Randy? Danny watched me for a year. He was with me for the first year where I had no idea who I was. Even with that solid recovery, I was so attached to that business as my authentic self. I wasn't Randy Boyd, the owner of Macon. I didn't have all these big contacts, and I didn't have 80 employees no more. Who am I now? I'm just this man with a wife and a kid. I can tell you right now, I'm a great father. I'm a great husband. I'm a man of God. I'm a man with passion, a man of compassion. I'm a great man. Humbly, I'm a great man. And I mean that with all my heart. And I couldn't have told you that. And I couldn't be looking any of you in the eyes like I'm doing today, even 2 years ago. Getting honest with God. That was a good one. You know, because when I 18, I turned my back on God and the church. If this is what God is about, I want nothing to do with it. And the church, I want nothing to do with it. So I walked out, turned my back on God, and I ran self-run riot for 38 years. Pretty good life. A lot of problems. A lot of shame. A lot of sleepless nights. So when I got into AA again, Betty Ford was actually a key player in this. Walked in a workshop, a spiritual workshop one day, and a whiteboard on the wall. And Greg, my counselor, goes, or six or eight of us in there, he goes, okay, if you could have any kind of God, I'm going to have you create your God right now. What would that be? He had me come up on the whiteboard and everybody throwing out names. Happy, joyous, free, discerning, you know, just nothing but positive attributes. I mean, a whole whiteboard with nothing but positive attributes. He walked out the door. As he got to the door, he turned to us. He says, Randy, or he goes, everybody, there's your new God. See, I grew up with a God that was damning, throwing lightning bolts at me, doing all that. You know, I was going to burn in hell because I peed behind my neighbor's house. You know, that's the kind of God I grew up with, literally. I don't believe in the fear of God, I believe in the respect of God. Why would I want to fear God? I feared all my life. And I say that respectfully, but I respect God. And if it wasn't for Him, that's why I talk so highly about Him. If it was not for God, I would not be standing here right now talking to you. Period. In the line. So when I got on my knees after that spiritual counselor gave me a suggestion, I said, God, I can't do this on my own anymore. I need help. Please help me. I just celebrated 10 years last Friday. So there's a whole chapter on that, and it's all, you know, it's all layman's terms, you know. Stopping the shame, how we stop the shame, how we work through that part, you know. Reparenting journey, doing a lot of inner child work. I got, with my books, I got a little workbook out there. It's a 7-day challenge, a real simple real simple things to do. Seeking approval is big. Seeking approval is really big. I got all right, this is on page 88, and this is a really bold statement. I've been told it's like way bold. It is possible that seeking approval is the single most common and by far the most painful addiction ever created by mankind. More devastating than heroin, more addictive than cocaine, more ambiguous than food, the desperate need for approval has done more harm than any substance ever could. If this sounds too dramatic, consider the following. More harm has been done in the name of love for wanting to be loved than has been done purely for the desire to be evil. Addictions, depressions, or desperate actions are often caused by wanting to end the feeling of not being loved or accepted by others. You got to remember, not everybody's alcoholic or addict. My wife's codependent, and her approval seeking was what drove her crazy. I always say, you know, by the grace of God, she kept me after I got married. But I was telling Leonard, it just means she's sicker than I was. I mean, I wouldn't have stayed with me. My wife loves me, and I love her. So. You know, and I talk about forgiveness, what forgiveness is and what forgiveness is not. That's so big. I will say personally, for myself, if you want to be free of the bondage of the hate, the anger, and the resentment of your past, 3 death words. I'm going to do one more. 3 death words for victims. You need to forgive, forget, and move on. Don't ever tell a victim that. Never. But what I will say in love, if you want to be free of the resentment of your past, your anger, your hate, and your rage, you absolutely have to forgive. But that is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. You have to move on. You will never forget. I know I don't want to forget. I never want to forget because I want to go back there. And if I ever forget, I want to be able to help the people I'm going to help. And then chapter 13 is the last chapter, is the authentic self, finding your authentic self. And Dr. Alan Berger put a piece in there about the acorn tree and how you can't force an acorn tree not to be an acorn. I mean, the DNA is in the seed of the acorn, and it's going to grow the way it's going to grow, and it's going to grow precisely how it's supposed to grow. And it kind of compares that with children and the authentic self. I mean, I could do a whole talk on that myself, but it's a really good chapter to read, because who is your authentic self? Are you who your parents wanted you to be? I'm not saying any of this is bad. We were born into the world without a choice. We were given a name without a choice. We were told what school to go to without a choice. We were told what God to believe in without a choice. We were told what college to go to without a choice. We were told what career we wanted to go into without a choice. Don Miguel Ruiz talks about this extensively. So it's a really good chapter to finding who you really are as a human being. And it's a scary journey because I've been on it for a long time, and what I'm involved into is nothing that I thought I would evolve into 10 years ago. So it is a scary journey. Open-mindedness and willingness on this whole journey is all that it takes. That's it. So, if I get you guys out of here on time, hold on. Danny talks too long all the time. So.
I'm leaving you on your own.
Quiet, man. Shh. Okay. Oh, did anybody get a little smiley face on their paper? Look on their packet somewhere. They got a smiley face sticker. Did you? Don, did you get it? Yeah. All right, don't leave. You got a free book.
Oh, that's
Hey. Lucky Don.
You gotta have fun, right? Hey. All right, lastly, I'm going to go over this real quick. You guys got this? You might hold on to this. It's really pretty valuable, actually, I feel. Something I I came up with myself. So why we don't tell and what we need. Okay, we feel all alone. 1 in 4 boys will be abused before the age of 18, so we're not alone. We're not alone. We just need to find that group of people and get hooked up with them. Why we don't tell. I have my own experiences. Why? But at the core of it all are societal rules for men. Don't be weak. We should have been able to protect ourselves. Kids this big and to protect herself against a guy like me, really? I'm not a perpetrator, but I mean, I'm just kind of size-wise. Don't show emotion. Suck it up, be a man. The emotional pain we live with is overwhelming, yet we feel we can't say anything. We're dying inside, but we can't say anything. Don't ask for help. If I ask for help, they won't believe me. Or if I'm heterosexual, they'll think I'm gay. And if I'm gay, they'll think I asked for it and say I deserved it. Don't cry. Whatever you do, don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about, like you really need something else to cry about. And don't show your weakness. You're a man, for God's sake. To admit it happened would show you how weak I am. Wrong. To admit it happened shows me how strong and courageous you are as a human being, as a man, as a woman. It's all about strength and courage and not weakness. How do we feel inside? We feel tainted, disgusting, dirty, weak, and less than a boy or a man. So what do we need? Someone who will listen to us and hear us without judgment. Someone who will believe us, validate us. Validation is so vitally important. That's when the feeling really can begin. Don't try to fix us. You can't. You can't fix us. So don't even try to. Just love us through the process. Support us and help us to get the kind of help that we need. If you can't provide that help, then find some help for them. I just sent a kid before the first of the year I was working with to the Meadows for 45 days. I said, you got to go get help. I can take you to a certain point, but I can't help you right now. You need to go to the Meadows. I'm not proud. Don't force us to talk about it. When we open up, be there for us. When we say we're done talking for now, honor our request. This is a painful journey and we need to take care of ourselves along the way. Remember, this is a lifelong process and a marathon, not a sprint. More often than not, when a man comes to me and starts talking about his abuse, he's just opened up for the first time in his life this big can of shame that's been inside of his stomach for years. It's like my therapist, Melissa, Betty Ford, told me, just let the Coke bottle open a little bit at a time. You don't have to blow the whole top off. And oftentimes those men, they'll talk to us and then they shut down. Why? They just got overrun with shame. So we can't force them to talk. We want to let them know we're there for them. We got to pay attention to them, but they're likely going to shut down. If they don't want to talk again, I want to pull it out of them, but I can't. I'm not going to hurt them. When they're ready to talk, they'll talk. We do a little coaxing. I mean, that's what we do as helpers. We coax a little bit. We try to bring them out a little bit. But we know when to stop. We just got to stop. So I know this. Hello?
You turn it off?
Hello? So I know this is a little bit of a deep subject and dark and stuff, but we have to talk about it. And we have to learn how to deal with it. And we have to learn how to help these men and treat them. If it's one man, it's one man. that's just one more man, because that one man is just a ripple in the water. And where's his ripple going to go to? Where's his ripple going to go to? So, with that, is there any questions? Okay, we got a quote? Okay. One question.
Okay, well, what's the difference between sexual abuse and this trauma that this young child has, and let's say the abuse of war, or a children that experiences war, or experiences some kind of catastrophe, tornado, or some kind of real traumatic experience?
I can't honestly answer that because I haven't worked with a trauma victim from. I know I got a couple of guys from Iraq right now that have had both.
I could address that.
Can you? Sure.
Is that when a child is being abused by a parent who they're supposed to trust, who's supposed to be a caregiver, and their whole life goes to that, that's the difference. And that's what goes deep down inside. Whereas, yes, catastrophe does affect them, but it doesn't take away their basic trust.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. So I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate your attentiveness and participation.